Hello and welcome back. In the previous video, you learnt about the introduction and overview statement for Task 1. Let's now have a look at how to write the body paragraphs. You will learn about the structure of body paragraphs and how to select information to include in these paragraphs. In Task 1, you must identify the significant or main trends or the points of comparison in the visual that you are given. In the body paragraphs, you need to write about each of these significant or main trends or comparisons and support each one with data from the graph. It is very important that you include specific numbers and data. Let's look at an example of how this is done in the body paragraphs. For this, we will again be looking at the line graph on Australian mining industry employees. When writing about this graph, or any graph or visual in Task 1, it is important that you do not simply list all the detail. If you do this, you cannot receive more than a band 5 for task achievement. You need to select the main details. You can do this by looking for the following: peaks, troughs, significant changes, similarities or differences. This graph shows change over time, and some of the main trends are a peak in 1900 of just over 60,000, a second smaller peak of just under 50,000 in 1950, a decline from 1900 to 1940 before a rise, a decline from 1960 to 1990, a low of 15,000 in 1990. After you have identified the main trends, you need to think about how you will organize this information. It is recommended that you use 2 paragraphs for the majority of Task 1 responses. To describe this graph and other graphs which show change over time, you should present these trends in the order of the time in which they occurred, by using time markers to introduce each trend, by supporting each trend with data, and by linking similar or different trends with a signpost word. Now, let's look at the body paragraphs which were written about this graph. The use of time markers here is key to writing a clear response. They make your answer cohesive by linking your ideas together, and they signal each new trend. Remember to vary the time markers you use. For example, in the sample answer for Australian mining industry employees, some time markers used are at the beginning, by the end, throughout, this was followed by, and by. Another important element in Task 1 is the explicit use of data. If you describe the graph without using data, you cannot receive more than a band 5 for task achievement. Look at how the student has referenced specific amounts and numbers from the graph. However, you do not need to do this in every sentence. Notice how the sentence beginning with however does not include a specific amount. Now that you have looked at some examples, you should practice writing some yourself. Follow the instructions below.